Tonight, you will do something your ancestors couldn't do for 300,000 years. You will choose when to sleep, not when the sun tells you, not when your body collapses from exhaustion. You will look at a screen, decide you're not tired yet, and stay awake. And it will feel completely normal, because it is normal. For you, for everyone alive right now. But for every human who ever lived before the last 200 years, that choice didn't exist. The night decided when you slept, and the night was not negotiable. There are people alive today who still sleep the way your ancestors did, not by choice, not as an experiment, because nothing in their world ever changed. And what scientists found when they studied them broke every assumption modern medicine had built around sleep. Let's start with where these people are, because that matters. In the highlands of Bolivia and the forests of Namibia, there are communities that have never used artificial light consistently. No electric bulbs, no smartphones after dark. When the sun drops below the horizon, their world goes dark the way your world went dark every single night for the first 99.9% of human history. Researchers from UCLA spent years living alongside these groups. They wore sensors, they tracked sleep, they measured temperature, light exposure, and every waking moment in between. What they found was not what anyone expected. These communities do not go to sleep at sunset. They stay awake for an average of 3 hours after dark. They sit together. They talk. And then, when the temperature drops to its lowest point in the night cycle, they sleep. Not when it gets dark, when it gets cold. Your body was never programmed to respond to darkness. It was programmed to respond to temperature. The drop in ambient heat at night triggers a drop in your core body temperature, which is the actual signal your brain uses to release melatonin and pull you towards sleep. Darkness mattered only because darkness and cold always arrived together, until we separated them. When you sit in a warm, lit room at 11 p.m., your brain receives two signals that directly contradict each other. Your light exposure says midday. Your social isolation says nothing is happening. Your body has no idea what to do with that combination. It has never encountered it before in the entire history of your species. But here's what's even stranger. These same communities don't sleep 8 hours. They sleep 6.5, sometimes less. And they show almost zero rates of the chronic insomnia that affects roughly 1 in 3 adults in the developed world. Researchers ran the numbers twice because they didn't believe them. The people sleeping the least, in the most physically demanding conditions, with no mattresses, no climate control, and no sleep tracking apps, were sleeping better than almost anyone in the modern world. The scientists called it the temperature hypothesis. But what it really was a window into what sleep looked like before we decided to engineer it. And sleep was not the only thing we engineered away. There is a researcher at Harvard named Charles Czeisler. He has spent 4 decades studying what artificial light does to the human brain. What he found is this. The photoreceptors in your eyes that regulate your circadian rhythm are not the ones you use to see. They are a separate system entirely, discovered only in 2002. They connect directly to a cluster of neurons in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is your body's master clock. It does not care about your schedule. It does not care about your alarm. It cares about one thing: light. Specifically, blue light. The kind that sits between 460 and 480 nanometers on the spectrum. The kind that your phone, your laptop, and your overhead LED bulbs emit in enormous quantities after dark. When that light hits those receptors at 10 p.m., your master clock does not register it as artificial. It registers it as sunrise. It halts melatonin production. It pushes your body's internal time forward by 2 to 3 hours. And when you finally do fall asleep, you enter the later phases of your cycle already compressed. The deep, slow-wave sleep your brain uses to consolidate memory, clear metabolic waste, and repair cellular damage gets cut short. You wake up and feel like you slept. But you didn't sleep the way you were built to sleep. Here's the part nobody talks about. The people in Namibia and Bolivia that UCLA researchers studied don't just sleep differently, they dream differently. They report dream recall at rates that modern Western adults almost never match. Not because they dream more, because they wake up in alignment with their natural cycle, at the point in the night when REM sleep is longest and most vivid. Their last hour of sleep is saturated with dreaming. Ours gets cut off by an alarm. For most of human history, the dream was not a side effect of sleep. It was the point of it. Cultures across every continent built their spiritual frameworks, their decision-making rituals, and their understanding of the self around what happened in the hours before dawn. The Aboriginal Australians called it the dreaming, not a dream. The dreaming, a state that existed in parallel to waking life and was no less real. We don't talk about that anymore, because most of us never get there. So what does it actually take to sleep the way your ancestors slept? The answer is almost offensively simple. Let the temperature drop. Kill the light. Go to bed when your body tells you to, not when your screen releases you. And wake up without an alarm. That last one is the hardest, because almost no modern life is structured to allow it. Zeisler's research found that waking by alarm, specifically during deep sleep, floods the body with cortisol at levels that take hours to clear. You feel it as grogginess. Your brain calls it sleep inertia. What it actually is a stress response. Your body interpreted the alarm as a threat. It mobilized. And now you are spending the first 2 hours of your day burning through the cortisol that was supposed to be reserved for something that actually mattered. The last people on Earth who still sleep correctly are not sleeping correctly because they are disciplined. They are sleeping correctly because their world never gave them a reason not to. The light never separated from the cold. The morning never arrived with a sound designed to jolt them out of unconsciousness. Their sleep is not a practice. It is just what happens when nothing interferes. And here is the part that stays with you. In the UCLA study, when researchers asked members of these communities about insomnia, about lying awake unable to sleep, about waking at 3 a.m. with a racing mind, almost none of them had a word for it. Not because the researchers couldn't translate, because the experience itself didn't exist for them in any form they recognized. For 300,000 years, that was the default. That was every human who ever lived. And we traded it for the ability to watch one more episode. The last people sleeping correctly aren't doing anything special. They're just doing nothing wrong.